When we begin to look closely at the human body after the age of 50, one of the first regions that quietly reveals the passage of time is the upper body, particularly the shoulders and the chest. These areas hold the history of our daily habits. Think about how many hours a typical person spends leaning forward, reading messages on a phone, working at a computer, driving long distances, sitting at tables, looking down at books or screens. Over the decades, this repeated forward orientation slowly reshapes the posture. The shoulders drift inward, the chest narrows slightly, and the upper back begins to round. None of this happens suddenly. It occurs gradually, almost invisibly, until one day a person realizes that standing tall requires effort rather than happening naturally. From a biomechanical perspective, this change is not simply about appearance. It alters the relationship between muscles, joints, and breathing. When the shoulders roll forward, the muscles at the front of the chest become shorter and tighter. At the same time, the muscles across the upper back weaken because they are rarely asked to hold the body in an open position. This imbalance subtly affects the shoulder joints, which are designed to move freely in many directions. When the surrounding muscles lose balance, the joints become less stable and the range of motion begins to decrease. The reverse tabletop position offers a fascinating response to this long-developed pattern. When a person places their hands behind them, presses into the ground, and lifts the hips upward, something unusual happens to the structure of the upper body. Instead of folding forward, the chest expands outward and upward. The shoulders rotate backward, encouraging the shoulder blades to move closer together along the back. This movement activates muscles that often remain dormant in everyday life, particularly those responsible for stabilizing the upper spine and supporting the shoulder girdle. What makes this movement especially interesting from a scientific standpoint is how it reverses a very common mechanical pattern. The human body adapts strongly to repeated positions. We spend years leaning forward. The body gradually assumes that this is the most efficient configuration. Muscles shorten where they are constantly contracted and weaken where they are rarely used. The reverse tabletop introduces a counterposition, a deliberate shift in direction that reminds the body of another possibility. It gently lengthens the muscles across the chest while strengthening the muscles across the back. Another subtle change occurs in breathing mechanics. When the chest opens and the ribs lift slightly upward, the lungs gain more space to expand. The diaphragm, the primary breathing muscle, can move more freely when the rib cage is not compressed forward. For many adults over 50, this expanded posture can create the sensation of a deeper, calmer breath. It is not dramatic or forced. It simply allows the respiratory system to operate with fewer physical restrictions. Over time, practicing this posture daily can help the nervous system rediscover a more balanced alignment between the front and back of the body. The shoulders gradually learn to rest in a more open position. The chest regains some of the spaciousness that years of forward movement had slowly diminished. The body begins to remember that uprightness is not a rigid act of holding tension, but a natural expression of balanced muscular support. If we shift our attention slightly lower in the body, we arrive at the hips, a region that quietly governs many of the movements we perform throughout the day. Walking, standing, climbing stairs, rising from a chair, all of these actions depend heavily on the strength and stability of the muscles surrounding the hips. Yet by the time many people reach their 50s, these muscles have often grown weaker, not because the body has lost its potential, but because modern life has gradually removed the need to use them fully. Chairs support the pelvis for hours each day. Cars replace long walks, and daily routines rarely challenge the muscles that once powered our movements when we were younger. The body adapts faithfully to whatever demands are placed upon it. When certain muscles are used less frequently, the nervous system reduces the priority it gives to activating them. Over time, this leads to decreased strength in the glutes, which are among the largest and most powerful muscles in the human body. The gluteal muscles play an essential role in stabilizing the pelvis and supporting the spine during movement. When they become underactive, other structures often compensate. The lower back muscles may begin to work harder than they should, and the hips may shift slightly out of optimal alignment. These small adjustments may not be noticeable at first, but they can gradually contribute to discomfort, stiffness, or a feeling of instability when walking or standing for long periods. The reverse tabletop posture introduces a surprisingly effective way to awaken these muscles again. When a person presses their hands and feet into the ground and lifts their hips toward the ceiling, the glutes must contract to elevate and hold the pelvis in position. Unlike movements that rely heavily on momentum, this posture requires controlled muscular engagement. The hips cannot remain lifted without active participation from the muscles along the back of the body. This includes not only the glutes, but also the hamstrings and other supporting muscles that form what physiologists often refer to as the posterior chain. What makes this activation particularly valuable for people over 50 is its simplicity and safety. The movement does not require heavy weights or rapid motion. Instead, it asks the muscles to work steadily and deliberately. The body learns once again how to generate upward force from the hips while maintaining stability through the torso. This process strengthens the muscles that help keep the pelvis level during walking, which is crucial for maintaining smooth, efficient movement. There is also an important structural effect. When the glutes engage properly, they help position the pelvis in a more neutral alignment. The pelvis acts as the foundation of the spine, and its position influences how forces travel through the lower back. Strong gluteal muscles help distribute these forces more evenly, reducing unnecessary strain on the lumbar region. Over time, this can support better posture and reduce the subtle mechanical stress that accumulates from years of sitting and limited movement. As the hips grow stronger through consistent practice, many people begin to notice small but meaningful improvements in daily life. Standing up from a chair may feel smoother, walking may feel more stable, and the body may carry itself with a renewed sense of support from its center. The muscles that once seemed dormant begin to participate again, reminding us that strength is not something permanently lost with age, but something that can be gently reawakened through mindful movement. Beneath the visible movements of muscles and joints, the human body is constantly engaged in a quieter process that sustains life moment by moment: circulation. Every heartbeat sends blood through a vast network of vessels, delivering oxygen and nutrients to tissues while carrying away the byproducts of cellular activity. As people move through their 40s and 50s, the efficiency of this system becomes increasingly important. Not because it suddenly weakens, but because the body becomes more sensitive to the rhythms of activity and rest that shape how blood flows through muscles, organs, and connective tissues. When daily movement decreases, circulation can become slightly less dynamic, and tissues may receive fewer of the gentle pulses of oxygen-rich blood that help them maintain resilience. The reverse tabletop posture introduces a subtle yet meaningful shift in this internal rhythm. When a person presses their hands and feet into the ground and lifts the hips upward, the body briefly reorganizes how gravity interacts with circulation. The heart must adjust to supply blood to muscles that are actively supporting the posture, including the shoulders, arms, glutes, and thighs. This adjustment is not extreme or stressful. Rather, it represents a mild cardiovascular engagement that gently stimulates the circulatory system. Scientific observations of moderate physical activity consistently show that even small increases in muscular engagement can encourage better blood flow. When muscles contract, they assist the movement of blood through nearby vessels, acting almost like small pumps that help guide circulation back toward the heart. In the reverse tabletop, the muscles of the arms and legs remain active as they stabilize the body. And this steady engagement encourages blood to circulate through regions that may otherwise remain relatively inactive during long periods of sitting. For individuals over 50, this type of gentle stimulation can be especially beneficial because it introduces movement without overwhelming the heart or joints. High-intensity exercise certainly has its place, but not every body responds well to sudden bursts of effort. The body often prefers consistent, moderate signals that reinforce its natural rhythms. Holding a posture like the reverse tabletop for even a short period creates just such a signal. The heart rate may rise slightly, breathing may deepen, and blood begins to move with a bit more energy through the working muscles. Another interesting effect involves the distribution of blood between the upper and lower parts of the body. When the hips lift and the chest opens upward, the torso aligns in a way that allows blood to travel smoothly between the heart and the limbs. This balanced alignment supports efficient circulation without compressing the abdomen or restricting the ribcage. The cardiovascular system responds with subtle adjustments that encourage steady flow rather than abrupt changes. Over time, repeating this posture daily becomes less about the effort of holding the body up and more about maintaining the gentle rhythm it creates within the body. Muscles awaken, breathing becomes slightly fuller, and circulation gains a small but consistent boost. The body recognizes this pattern and begins to respond with greater efficiency, reinforcing the idea that movement does not need to be dramatic to support health. Sometimes the most meaningful improvements occur through small, repeated actions that quietly remind the heart, the muscles, and the blood vessels that they are part of a living system designed to move. If we look beyond muscles and circulation, we begin to encounter another remarkable system that quietly shapes the way we move through the world: the nervous system. Every movement, no matter how simple it appears, depends on a constant exchange of information between the brain and the body. Nerves carry signals outward to activate muscles, while sensory receptors send information back to the brain about pressure, position, balance, and motion. This two-way conversation allows us to perform actions without consciously calculating every detail. We stand, walk, reach, and adjust our posture almost automatically because the nervous system is continuously monitoring the body's relationship with gravity and space. As people move past the age of 50, this communication system remains powerful, but like any biological network, it benefits from regular stimulation. Balance and coordination are not fixed abilities that remain unchanged throughout life. They are dynamic skills maintained through experience and sensory feedback. When daily routines become predictable and physically limited, sitting in the same positions, walking on flat surfaces, performing repetitive movements, the nervous system receives fewer varied signals. Over time, the brain may become slightly less responsive to subtle shifts in body positions simply because it is not being asked to process those changes frequently. The reverse tabletop posture quietly challenges this system in a way that is both gentle and surprisingly complex. At first glance, the position appears straightforward: hands placed behind the body, feet on the ground, hips lifted upward. Yet maintaining this shape requires a coordinated effort between multiple parts of the body. The wrists must support weight while adjusting to pressure from the floor. The shoulders stabilize to prevent the upper body from collapsing. The feet press downward to anchor the posture, while the hips remain elevated through muscular control. Each of these contact points, hands, feet, shoulders, kins, contains sensory receptors that detect pressure, angle, and movement. These receptors immediately send information through peripheral nerves toward the spinal cord and brain. The brain processes these signals and sends back instructions to adjust muscle tension and maintain balance. This process happens in fractions of a second, creating a continuous loop of communication that allows the body to remain stable. This internal awareness is known as proprioception, often described as the body's sense of its own position in space. It is the reason you can close your eyes and still know where your hands or feet are located. Maintaining strong proprioceptive awareness becomes increasingly important with age because it helps prevent falls and supports confident movement. When the brain receives regular sensory input from joints and muscles, it maintains a clearer internal map of the body. The reverse tabletop acts as a small training ground for this awareness. Because the posture distributes weight across both the upper and lower body, the nervous system must coordinate signals between multiple regions simultaneously. The brain learns to interpret pressure through the palms, stability through the feet, and alignment through the spine and hips. Even slight adjustments in balance trigger immediate feedback, sharpening the body's responsiveness. Practiced regularly, this kind of sensory engagement helps keep the nervous system alert and adaptable. The brain continues refining its understanding of how the body moves and stabilizes itself, reinforcing pathways that support coordination and spatial awareness. Rather than allowing these abilities to fade quietly with reduced activity, the posture gently reminds the nervous system that the body is still capable of learning, adjusting, and maintaining harmony between movement and balance. When we arrive at the spine, we arrive at one of the most remarkable structures in the human body. The spine is not merely a stack of bones holding the torso upright. It is a living column that balances strength with flexibility, protection with movement. Within it lies the spinal cord, the central highway of communication between the brain and the rest of the body. Around it are layers of muscles and ligaments that stabilize every twist, bend, and step we take. For decades, this structure quietly absorbs the mechanical forces of daily life. Every time we sit, lean forward, lift objects, or stand for long periods, the spine adapts to the pressure placed upon it. As people move into their 50s and beyond, the spine often begins to reveal the accumulated patterns of those years. Many modern lifestyles encourage long hours of sitting. The body naturally falls into a forward-leaning posture when seated. The head moves slightly ahead of the shoulders, the upper back rounds, and the lower spine compresses under constant load. None of this is inherently harmful in short periods, but when repeated day after day for decades, the muscles that support the spine may weaken while certain areas experience persistent compression. The discs between the vertebrae, which act like soft cushions absorbing shock, respond to pressure by slowly losing some of their natural elasticity. This can create a feeling of stiffness or heaviness along the back, especially after remaining in one position for too long. The reverse tabletop posture offers a fascinating mechanical contrast to this pattern. Instead of folding the body forward, it invites the spine to organize itself along a horizontal line, while the chest opens and the hips rise. In this position, the forces acting on the vertebrae distribute differently than they do during sitting or slouching, rather than compressing primarily toward the front of the spine. The posture encourages a balanced engagement of muscles along the entire back body. The erector spinae, a group of muscles running alongside the spine, activate to maintain alignment. At the same time, the abdominal muscles gently stabilize the front of the torso, preventing excessive arching. This balanced muscular engagement is significant because the spine relies heavily on surrounding muscles for support. When these muscles remain inactive for long periods, the spine bears more structural load on its own. But when the muscles awaken and participate, they help share that load, reducing unnecessary strain on joints and discs. In the reverse tabletop, the body briefly redistributes weight through the shoulders, arms, hips, and legs, allowing the spinal structures to experience a different mechanical environment. Another subtle benefit emerges from the sense of length that the posture creates along the torso. As the hips lift and the chest expands, the body experiences a gentle extension that counters the forward curvature common in sedentary lifestyles. This extension does not force the spine into an unnatural position. Instead, it encourages the vertebrae to align in a way that feels spacious rather than compressed. Many people notice that even a short hold in this posture creates a sensation of lightness across the back, as though the spine has been given room to breathe. Over days and weeks of consistent practice, this pattern of engagement can help restore confidence in the strength of the back body. The muscles supporting the spine grow more responsive, the torso learns to stabilize itself more effectively, and the body begins to remember that upright structure does not come from rigidity, but from cooperation between muscles, bones, and the quiet intelligence of movement itself.